My sister left my nephew with me to flee the country with her new boyfriend, and now that he's left her 15 years later, she demands that I return my nephew to her. I was never a responsible person and always liked to do things that I now recognize were totally reckless in my adolescence. But my sister could be even worse than me. She would run away from home for weeks without telling our parents, to the point where we had to call the police to look for her, only for her to be holed up at some new boyfriend's house whom she had met the day before. This happened more than once, and despite my parents talking to her, trying to put her in therapy, and trying to resolve the situation in various possible ways, nothing worked. She simply thought she had the right to mess up, worry our parents, and as soon as she got tired, she could just come back home as if nothing had happened. My parents thought about kicking her out of the house, but they thought that would only make the situation worse and that she would end up losing her way in life if they did that. So she continued to do these things without any punishment. The worst part was when she got pregnant, and from the start she had made it clear that she didn't know who the child's father was. This didn't surprise any of us, of course, but the disappointment on my father's face was palpable at this point. I had already left home a long time ago, so I was happy, because at least I wouldn't have to deal with this situation face to face. But I was terribly wrong. One day my sister showed up at my door and said she urgently needed me to take care of her son while she did some things. She refused to specify what these things were and how long it would take. So at first I refused to comply with this request. But she begged so much and said my parents refused to take care of him that I ended up feeling sorry for her and agreed to take care of him for this time, thinking it would only be a few hours. She mentioned the type of milk he drank, his allergy problems, etc. I didn't understand why she was being so detailed, since theoretically I would only be with him for a few hours, but I didn't comment on it. However, I was terribly wrong. 1, 2, 3 hours passed and she still hadn't returned. Night came and she hadn't even sent me a message, despite my attempts to contact her several times. And that's when I knew something was wrong. I called my parents to ask if she was there, but they said they had kicked her out of the house because she had sold the milk they had bought for the child to buy jewelry. I explained what had happened, and they said they could come pick up the child for me if I wanted. But my parents are already elderly, and I didn't want to stress them with this. So I said it was okay, and that I could take care of the child. However, after 2 long days of this routine, my sister finally sent me a message saying she had fled the country with her new boyfriend. She said she hadn't planned to do that, but that love had caught up with her or something like that, and that she couldn't run away while taking care of a child. So she hoped I could take care of him for her. I tried to reply, but of course she had already blocked me. It was difficult at first, but honestly, I soon became attached to the child and really saw myself as a father figure to him. Of course, as soon as he began to understand things, I briefly explained who his mother was and what she had done, but fortunately he didn't seem to care much. I honestly thought my sister would never show up again, and honestly was hoping she never would. But unfortunately, that's not what happened. Recently, out of nowhere, she knocked on my door, and when I answered, she hurriedly entered my house saying she wanted her son back. I tried to hold her back, but it didn't work, and when she saw him, she just tried to tell him to go with her and that he would now live with her. But he just laughed and looked at me, clearly not understanding the situation. She still tried to take him, but at this point, I couldn't even look at her in the face. So I called my neighbor, who is a policeman, and he removed her from my house and arrested her. So she refused to leave peacefully. However, that's when the real surprise begins. Now she's suing me for custody of the child, and apparently her biggest argument is that she never abandoned him and that she just wasn't ready to take care of him at the time. But now she wants her son back. The hearing to determine custody is tomorrow, and my son is ready to testify that he would never want to stay with her anyway, which is obvious since to him she's a complete stranger. I know it's hard for me to lose custody of him in a case like this, but even so, I admit I'm afraid he'll end up falling into the hands of someone like her. You can now check if there's a part 2 by pressing share and more.